What's going on, Jets fans? It's your boy DT back with a special episode hitting your timeline this weekend. Week 1 is just around the corner. Pittsburgh coming to MetLife Sunday afternoon. I will be in attendance. Hope to see a lot of the listeners out there. Definitely come up and say hello. I'll be in lot E26. Today, I have a really special episode for everybody. Going to hit your timeline either Friday afternoon or Saturday morning. I have my guy, All-22 Drew Wasowicz, joining the show. He's going to talk about the Aaron Glenn and Steve Wilks defense. So let's bring him on right now. Drew, how's it going, man? I appreciate you hopping on.
What's up, man? It's good to be here. I love talking Jets football.
Yeah, absolutely. You and I have connected on Twitter, right? You reached out to me. We were just kind of talking ball on Twitter, and to be completely candid, I love your knowledge. I think what you're going to bring to this episode and to the listeners is huge, right? We're going to learn a lot about what Aaron Glenn and Steve Wilks are trying to do with this defense. So first and foremost, just I guess give a little bit of background of how you got into football a little bit and what you do around the game of football.
Like so many of us, I played football my whole life throughout high school. I played a little bit of college football, small school, nothing to write home about. But what that experience, I was always the coach on the field, so that's something that I really always kind of knew in the back of my mind I didn't want to do. I always knew our playbooks like the back of my hand. I knew all the checks. I was, coaches depended on me to call plays on the field and just lead, and I just took that up. And when I was done playing, because obviously I was not lucky enough to be good enough to play in the NFL, but I wanted to stick around the game of football like so many of us do, and coaching was the way to do that.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of people's, I guess, plan B, right? If they realize their talent can only get them so far, but if you have the knowledge and the intelligence, you can prolong your football career much longer than some of the guys who just bank on talent alone. So again, I appreciate you hopping on. I think your knowledge is going to be perfect for what this community wants to hear about. Today, we're going to talk about Aaron Glenn, Steve Wilks defense, a couple of the, responsibilities, right? Front end, second level, back end in the secondary. We'll talk about some specific players. So first and foremost, I want to ask you, what would be your biggest difference from the Saleh scheme to the AG scheme if you had to pick just one specific area?
I'd say the versatility. I think, you hear a lot of we're going to play man coverage, we're going to blitz a lot. And while those things are true, I think Glenn can really do anything. I think, we see that Saleh was really into his quarters, which he did a variety of things. I mean, he's an NFL coach, he's going to do a variety of things. But in terms of NFL variety, it wasn't very much. He stuck to his guns. He stuck to his philosophy. He stuck to what he liked to do. And Aaron Glenn's he's going to fit everybody into exactly what they are good at doing, which I think is a big difference. We saw a lot of guys kind of being round pegs stuck into square holes with Saleh. Not always the bad thing. Saleh had a good scheme. It worked obviously for some years, but then like versatility and variety, I think, is the main thing we're going to see this year. That's different.
Yeah, and with versatility comes unpredictability more often than not in football. So I'm certainly an advocate of the versatility. You get guys doing different assignments instead of just put your hand in the dirt and go get the quarterback no matter what. So we'll start up front with the defensive line and we'll work our way back. So defensive alignments, you and I talked a couple days ago backstage. We just kind of nerded out for about an hour. Yeah. And I loved your insight. So I'm not asking you to completely nerd out here, but you can certainly nerd out to a degree. Let's talk about defensive alignments, some of their fronts, some of their responsibilities. What do you think from the D-line perspective? Because like we just said, Saleh said, put your hand in the dirt and just go get the quarterback. So what do you think we can anticipate or expect from the guys up front, first and foremost?
I think Glenn showed his willingness to run multiple fronts in Detroit. They stuck mainly with 4-3 personnel in their base personnel, but they lined up in a lot of like 3-4 fronts. People would think are 3-4 fronts, like a lot of tight fronts with 3 down linemen. Maybe they have 4-eye techniques, inside shoulder, the tackle, and a 0, or they might again under fronts. That's traditionally a 3-4 thing. That guy, it's easy bump from a traditional odd front to 3-4 stuff. But I think here, just with our personnel, he's going to stick mainly to his 4-3 stuff. I mean, the previous regime to what 4 or 5 years setting up 4-3 personnel. Like we're not just going to stick guys into a 3-4 system without knowing what they're good at. This team and this roster is built for 4-3, so I think we're going to mainly see 4-3 stuff, which is what we're used to. But it's going to be a different style. So Salah's 4-3 was really you heard wide 9 a lot. The ends were really widened out. Our interior D linemen really attacking the line of scrimmage and really penetrating. You heard that a lot, right? They were gap charge players. That's what one of the terms you could call them. They really tried to penetrate the offensive line and just create havoc, right? And that's good for rushing the passer on early downs. That's what Saleh wanted to do. He wanted to rush the passer at all times. But what it doesn't do, it could create splash plays in the run. You saw Leonard Taylor do it a couple. That's why everyone, he's good for that. Quinion would do that sometimes. And and they would just make TFLs. But what that's not good for, a drawback, is consistent down to down run defense. Because when you gap charge, that means double teams work off fast, but in the bad way. That means there's guys running straight towards your linebackers, and our linebackers aren't very big, so it's not always very. You saw that last year. Guys would get right up Quincy and get right on Sherwood, and they get blocked, and 8-yard runs, 6-yard runs. That eats you down, that wears you down, and you can't rush the passer after that.
Yeah, it certainly felt like there were several instances where an offensive lineman was working off his block and got to the second level super quickly. And when you're a penetrating defensive interior lineman, it does kind of work against that, right? If they're going to double team and work up, you're obviously giving them the easiest path, where now they're both kind of working up to the second level, essentially, if they just let you go into the backfield, knowing that they're running to the opposite side. So I'm definitely intrigued to see how that all plans out for AG, but I do like how he will mix in some odd and some even fronts. I think that's something we're not used to, right? Under Saleh, he did the wide 9, like you said. Yeah. So a couple players I wanted to touch on specifically on the D-line. Will McDonald, obviously he is a designated pass rusher first, and his run defense has had to come along in the last 2 years or whatever. So do you think the expectation for him would be to be a more efficient run defender in this defense? And do you think this defense is more tailored to him being a well-rounded player, or is he just going to be that situational pass rusher on third and longs only?
No, I think this is a great player to start with, because it allows me to keep talking about kind of what we were just talking about and what Glenn wants to do in differing the Saleh, right? And how the ends line up. You can tell a big difference. They're not just going to line up wide and just set an edge, which they will do. Don't get me wrong, you need to set an edge, right? But a lot of times Glenn will have his ends line up as fixed techniques on the tight end, because he wants to not give up that C gap and even that B gap if it's opposite the 3 tech, right? And I mean, he really wants to destroy that tight end. And I thought Jermaine would be a good role for this, right? But during the preseason, I saw snaps where Will McDonald was lined up on the close side meaning where the tight end is, and he was lined up right on top of him, and they said, "Hey, go bust it up." And I think his run defense is really underrated, because he has length, he has explosiveness. Maybe it's not the traditional sense where we think it's just a big guy going to stop in there, right? But he can create some havoc. He has, like I said, length and explosiveness, and he's going to fire off the ball, and he's going to give tight ends and tackles hell trying to stop him. He's going to make plays on the run, and he's not just going to be a pass rusher.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing that was noted about Will McDonald in his pre-draft process was Iowa State ran him as the 4-eye technique, like you said, inside shoulder of the tackle. And when you're a 235-pound defensive lineman, it might not always work. So do you think the added weight will help with that, and he will be able to shed blocks and destroy tight ends, like you're saying?
Certainly. I mean, he was never going to play 4-eye at the NFL level, but the fact that he could do it at the college level and use that length appropriately, because it's not just size, it's technique, it's length, it's explosiveness. Size is not just the only thing that makes a good run defender. And so I think him lining up in between the tackles like that in college is really going to help him take it on tight end, because really that added weight, he should be able to destroy almost any tight end in front of his face, unless it's a guy that's just like a pseudo tackle, those guys that might give him a little more trouble, but he should be able to really destroy any tight end. In my opinion.
I think him versus Darnell Washington would be a cool matchup right out the gates in
Yeah,
week 1. Can he go up against basically a pseudo sixth offensive lineman
yeah.
in Darnell Washington? So it's going to be a big test for him right out the gates. The next defensive lineman will move inside to the interior a little bit. The newest member of the defensive line, Harrison Phillips, came over in the trade from the Minnesota Vikings for about the value of a 6th-round pick. He spoke at the podium the other day with the media, and he talked about how quick the linebackers come downhill and how he has to kind of adjust his game to Quincy and Jamian. So can you speak to like what Phillips has, I guess, traditionally done in his career and now what you think he might do in this defense specifically?
Well, what he's done traditionally in his career is really what he's going to keep doing here. He's going to eat up blocks. He's going to not just eat them up, but control them. I think people just think eating up blocks is just you're just taking up space because you're a big body. Again, it's not just him being a big body. He's smart. He knows he knows how to read blocks. He knows how to read combos. Like which lineman he can expect to attack him and double him and why and how he needs to leverage himself in those blocks. And it's not just going to be he's big and strong, which he is, but he's going to be savvy. And again, that goes into what Glenn wants to do is interior D linemen. They're not going to gap charge anymore. They're going to control the line of scrimmage, and that's why Harrison was brought in, because we need someone alongside Quinnen that can do that just as well as him, if not even maybe a little better, just as a pure run stopper in terms of his savviness. And then about the linebackers taking off double teams. That's going to be huge for this defense. Glenn wants to force runs laterally. What that does is your linebackers have to move laterally as well, and that puts stress on the offensive linemen to get off their combos and to go pick up because if they don't, that's just a free tackle for the linebackers, right? So he's like, oh, I can actually go make plays now. That's what Harrison Phillips is saying. I can disengage because I don't have to hold this double team because my linebackers aren't sitting there. They're moving laterally. They're getting to their spots. They're showing their face in their gap. That's what they're supposed to do, show their face. Hey, you running back, you can't go here. You're going to have to cut back. And then that's when Harrison Phillips is like, yeah, I'm sitting right there because I don't have to just wait for the double team because my guys are too aggressive. They gotta force the double teams to work laterally and to get moving. So I think he's going to really like playing with them.
Yeah, I thought one of the best quotes he gave to the media was exactly about that. He's like, I was double teaming up against a center and a guard, and all of a sudden the guard went off his mark and he got knocked off his spot by the linebacker to the point where Phillips himself almost fell over because he was trying to hold down the point of attack. So I love that he's already acknowledging just how good these second-level defenders are. The last defensive lineman, before we talk about the linebackers a little bit more, Michael Clemens. We don't have to touch too long on it, but do you have any positive things about Michael Clemens that he can do schematically in this defense that'll allow him to maybe not be the most hated Jet on the 53-man roster?
I think Clemens is going to have a career year. And I mean, I say career year, not like that he's going to be a all-pro, Pro Bowler. I mean, for him, I think he's going to have the best year because his role in this defense is going to be perfect for him. So I thought Will McDonald was going to be purely the open side defensive end, which is away from the tight end. So he can just, not have to be the focal point of the run game. Well, I think, and vice versa, Clemens is going to be a great closed end. If he's going to play that 6 tech, that 7 tech, inside shoulder to tight end, meaning 7 tech. Clemens is going to play that role really well. I mean, when he was in a wide 9 with Saleh, there's a lot of space to cover, and he's not that type of athlete, but if you just say, hey, put your hand in the dirt, we're not asking you to play 4-eye, like Saleh was wanting him to get heavier that year, right? But it's like, hey, no, stay at your weight. You're going to be a tight end buster. You're going to be a wing buster. We see a lot of 12 personnel, that tight end wing set. They're going to line them up in a 7, 6, or a 9. They're going to, hey, don't let them run here. And he can do that just as well as anybody as a rotational end. So I think he'll find a good role, and I think maybe it won't show up on the stat sheet, but in the game, on the film, it's going to show up a lot, and I think that's why they kept him.
Yeah, we're only 15 minutes in, and I'm already getting more optimistic about the matchups against the Pittsburgh Steelers, right? You're talking about Will McDonald busting through a tight end head up, and now you're talking about Michael Clemens being a wing buster. Wing is when you have 2 tight ends attached to the formation on the same side. The Jets love to run that too. So Michael Clemens and Will McDonald being able to counteract those formations that the Steelers are likely going to run is going to be huge.
Arthur Smith, and he's got Jonnu Smith, and that's guaranteed to see it.
Yeah, Freiermuth, Smith, and now and Darnell Washington also. Like they have a collective of 12 or 13 personnel packages that I'm sure they're going to deploy.
We're going to see that half the game.
Yeah, exactly. So the second level, the glue of the defense, as Aaron Glenn and Steve Wilks have kind of coined the phrase, they are Jamian Sherwood and Quincy Williams. What can you say about their responsibilities? Because I believe they're going to run a lot of nickel, so 4-2-5 type of looks, right? They're not always going to have the base 4-3, but we'll get into that third linebacker in a second. But Jamian and Quincy specifically, they're probably going to be on the field 90+% of the time, hopefully if they're healthy. So what do you think those two guys are going to do in the middle to help out all around the back and the front?
Well, they're like I said, they're the glue. They're gonna be the reason this all works. A big part of it, anyways. 11 guys on the field, they all matter, right? But in terms of how systems like this use their linebackers, I love 3-4 guys. Like Glenn isn't like a traditional 3-4 guy. Just because you're a quote 3-4 guy doesn't mean you only run 3-4, right? But the intricacies of the defense and how they play their linebackers is a big thing I like. Right, so what he's going to do is, I think it's probably going to be Quincy, but he's going to be more of the cover backer, right? He's going to be playing more in space. Sherwood can do that, right? But we like him at Mike, right? And they're going to be able to not only stay, maybe even in base, they're still going to be able to run man coverage because they got two athletic linebackers that can cover backs and possibly even a tight end if he's not, a stud receiver tight end, but And again, with Harrison and Quinnen up front, they're going to be able to run and tackle, and they're going to be able to, like I said, runs are going to be placed laterally instead of with solid. Runs against us were very vertical, which is not their game. And they still had good years, and that isn't their game. So the fact that runs are going to be pushed more laterally, and they're going to be able to run and chase it, and they're just going to use all their strengths to their advantage. They're going to blitz more, right? It's going to be I think this defense is a lot more in tune with what those guys are good at, and I think we're going to love watching it every single week.
Yeah, something that's a bit foreign, right, is using the personnel and adapting the scheme to the personnel. Like you said, not putting the square pegs in the round holes anymore with Saleh and just saying, okay, this is your assignment. You got to go do this 70-80% of the time. No, I love that AG is really going to be using these guys to their strengths. And hopefully that, to your point, it does kind of create an element of, can these guys have career years? Not saying all pros, Pro Bowls, but their own personal best seasons under this defensive scheme. And I think that that's certainly a possibility for a lot of these guys. I've always said, this guy is a potential Pro Bowler in this defense, and the list gets like 7 players long, but it's actually true. And I believe that if AG gets these guys playing well, that all these guys can have a much better season than they did last year. Mm-hmm. The third linebacker, right now we're going to assume that it's Marcelino McCrary-Ball. It could be the rookie Kiko Mauinoa from Miami. I thought originally it was going to be Jamin Davis. He gave you a little bit more of like that edge, outside backer versatility, can play in coverage too. But if we're talking about McCrary-Ball or really just any third linebacker that comes onto the field, what do you think their responsibility would be in like a base 4-3, or if they go heavy to counteract the Pittsburgh Steelers going heavy?
Yeah, so kind of like I said, Quincy is going to be more that cover down. They call him a MAC linebacker. It's not the traditional will, right? So a MAC linebacker would go opposite the Sam linebacker or the nickel because he's the better cover backer, right? So to kind of make up for that.
So if your second level, sorry to cut you off, but if your second level is Michael Carter, Jamian Sherwood, Quincy Williams would be on the opposite side of Michael
almost
Carter
always,
in those
unless
situations.
It's man coverage, yeah.
Okay. Yep.
Mm-hmm. And that's because that's how they did it with I forget what his name, the Anzalone last year. He was their coach. He was good in space. He was able to cover backs out of the backfield, and I think Quincy's better than him at that. So I think he'll be able to have a great role during that. And at the third linebacker, if it's McCrary-Ball, I think they're going to be maybe run more man coverage because he's a smaller guy. But Glenn is not afraid to run man coverage at the base personnel at all. From film, I was like, you thinking maybe he doesn't want to go away from that backers. You don't want to put him in situations. But if you have a guy like McCrary-Ball, sorry if I'm saying his name wrong, it's a little bit rolls off the tongue funny, but he's fast, man. I mean, he was like 215, 220 soaking wet. I mean, he can run. And I mean, hell, I put him on a back if it's a good matchup, and again, he's just, if we want to maybe, if they're running 12 personnel and they're passing a lot out of it, but you don't want to put a really smaller guy in there, maybe he's a good option at opposite at Sam linebacker opposite Quincy, and they can run more man coverage stuff. But if it's like, if they run a maybe walk up the Sam, like you saw him do that in the preseason a little bit with Jamin Davis and other guys out there, and he did that in Detroit. If it's going to be a walk up Sam, maybe they want that Sam to be the wing buster, and they want to make sure that tight end's covered so they're not giving free releases and they're covering that C gap appropriately. It's probably going to be Kiko or who we keep, Zaire Barnes, if he's still there. I don't even, they switching linebackers back and forth, but if it's Kiko, I think he could do that. Kiko could just, hey, line up on that tight end. It's called choking when you put an end and a linebacker on a tight end, and with the linebacker on the inside, to, hey, walk him up right there and just destroy that guy. And then because that's a big emphasis when people put a tight end on the field, 3-man surface. That's where they want to go. It's not rocket science, so it's like, hey, how can we take that guy out of the game? A guy like Kiko can do that, like just put his hands on him and give a different look for the offense to do that, which is great. Like I said, Glenn's going to use his guys the way that they're meant to be used.
Yeah, when you water it down, it's literally just a numbers game. And if they have 5, we need to have 5 or more. And that's really what it comes down to. And Mel, to me at least, he's like a schematic difference because of his size. I think he can crash downhill and do the things that you were just alluding to. Whereas McCreary Ball, and because he is a captain, perhaps he is looked at as higher value as that third linebacker. But I agree, he is very small. I think he's even a converted defensive back from San Francisco.
He was so small.
Where have we seen that before, right? Robert Saleh converting DBs to linebackers. So I would agree if that is the case, if McCreary Ball is the guy, probably more man coverage. Whereas if it's Kiko, I think even Cam Jones, one of the waiver claims they picked up from Kansas City, I think that's who they cut for Zaire Barnes. But they're larger body. Right. They're larger body linebackers, right? They're not, 215, 220. They're closer to like 230, 235. So
at least bigger dudes for this era of football. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I know when it was a passing league, it's kind of getting back to the run centric. Linebackers being lighter is going to help you out more. But now you're seeing 2 high shells, light linebackers. Teams are just going to run it right at you. So I do think that's where a guy like Kiko comes in, because even in the preseason, he was shooting his gaps well, and I thought he was crashing downhill, making a big play on the ball. Not all the time, but there was plays where he was in the backfield and had a chance at a TFL, and maybe he just missed the tackle or what have you. But I feel like stylistically he's different than the linebacker. So it will be interesting to see how they play them. The back end, this secondary, something that I'm very, very confident in with this defense. Obviously, AG being a former DB himself, Pro Bowl DB for the Jets, obviously. And then you have Wilks, you have Dre Bly, Chris Harris. Like, you have a ton of knowledge at the DB spots from the coaching perspective that I am so high on this secondary, even if I don't love the safety tandem. But can you talk a little bit about Andre Cisco in this defense and what you think his role is going to be? Because in 2022, 2023, he was a very good safety for the Jaguars. And then 2024, it kind of all fell apart for the defense as an entirety, right? And now many people are very skeptical about him. He had that one bad play against the Giants, and I think people wrote him off. But what do you think Cisco's role is going to be in this defense?
Whatever this team needs. That's how Glenn is. He's gonna move guys. He's not gonna just keep people in one role and make it easy for the offense. Like, because if you just put Cisco deep and that's all Cisco's doing, they're gonna know. Hey, they're gonna know where we're rotating our coverage. It's away from wherever Cisco is. He's going to the middle. But Glenn's not that predictable. He's not that easy. And again, and he likes playing lighter boxes at times, and that's why. We saw Saleh when he wanted to play his quarters. Sometimes we got ran all over the place when you don't have to. So with those bigger guys up front, with their controlling more gaps, Cisco and our safeties are going to be able to rotate late into the box and to be able to create different looks. I mean, I saw Cisco come down and blitz, a safety blitz in their base package, and I was like, that's exactly what I love to see. And it was right after he gave up the touchdown. I was like, yeah, that guy doesn't. He's a football player. Next play. It's like, touchdown. Okay, I'm gonna go make a TFL. He's a good player, and I think people underrate his ability to play in the box. He's a bigger guy. If I'm not mistaken, he's got some size on him. and they're going to roll. They're going to blitz them off the edge. They're going to blitz everybody. They're going to blitz everybody just to give them a look. Just say, hey, we will do it. So think about it for a second. So he's going to be one of those chess pieces in the back with whoever else is there. It doesn't matter if it's Tony Adams or Malachi Moore. He can tackle and he can cover. He can play man. He can go be the deep third safety and go get a pick for us. And he can do it all. And I'm excited to watch him play in this defense.
Yeah, I love, I guess the optics of the mentality from Andre Cisco, right? That next play, oh, well, I just got burnt for a touchdown. I'm going to go in and make a play that next play. And like you said, those safety blitzes is something so foreign to this defense as of the last 3 or 4 years. So to have a guy like Cisco or Tony Adams even who was creating strip sacks in practice, right?
Mm-hmm.
To see these guys just being able to be versatile and, do the single high or the box stuff. They're obviously going to run some two high as well. So I'm really intrigued. I think Cisco to me is going to lead the team in interceptions because I feel like when he is back there as that single high free safety, he has the range to go sideline to sideline and he has the instincts to read the concepts out and make a instinctual play on the ball, which is what he was doing against the Giants to a degree.
Yeah.
It just didn't work, right? So there's going to be times where it's going to look bad at times, right, from the safety position, but that's because they're asked to just play so instinctually, right, and just go off feel. And if they read something wrong, it might end up in a big play. But if they read it right, that could be a huge turnover for the Jets going the other way. So certainly big on Andre Cisco having that bounce back year in this defense. You mentioned him a little bit there, Malachi Moore, the rookie from Alabama, played that star position for Nick Saban, kind of taking over that Brian Branch role after he left for the NFL. Again, another guy AG had in his own defense to use at his disposal. I've kind of said the hot take that I think by the time Malachi Moore is a 2 or 3 year veteran, he gets the green dot on his helmet instead of Jamien Sherwood. What do you think Malachi Moore can do in his rookie year just to emerge onto the scene? Because he's had a very good preseason. He had a couple rough moments with tackling in the first game against the Packers, but he really came on against the Eagles and the Giants in those last 2 games, and he was all over the field making interceptions, pass deflections, tackles for loss, special teams plays. So what do you think Malachi Moore can do in this defense?
He can do kind of like Cisco. He can do everything.
Mm-hmm.
And again, being that I don't think people. I love Saban and Belichick. I know people are going to hate me for that, but as a Jets fan, studying their defenses, I had to be like, oh wait, Belichick was actually that good, and that's why Brady won all those championships is because that defense never wavered. It's because and Saban, they come from similar trees. They're saying so. Studying Saban's defense, that star is asked to do a lot. And he's asked to cover people deep down the field. He's asked to man up some of the best players. He's asked to go get messy in the box. He's asked to do a lot of complicated stuff, honestly, probably even more complicated than what Glenn's going to do. And that's just how Saban does things. And that's he's like you said, he may even get the green dot because in Saban's defense, they're asked to communicate so much, and he knows how to do all that. And he's not afraid. He played the best competition. He's been with the best. He knows how to do it. And like I said, he can cover deep. He can cover man to man because in Saban's defense, that's all man coverage. Even when they're playing zone, they're playing man. That's just how it is. So he can lock people down. He has instincts. He can blitz. He can be in the box. He's strong against the run. He's just. I don't want to call him discount Brian Branch just because Brian Branch is that type of player, but he's going to be everything Brian Branch does. Maybe at a little bit lower of a level. Obviously, Brian Branch is amazing, right? But similar play style. He's gonna be that type of dude where you can move him around and ask him to do a lot because he's not gonna mess up. Because like I said, Saban's defense is you need to be perfect or it's not gonna work. And he was the main guy in that. Again, that Nichols has to do a lot. Nickel is no longer he just plays nickel. That is the centerpiece for a lot of these good defenses is that guy right there, and he can do it. And or roll back deep. Or blitz, or just anything you want him to do, and he's one of my favorite players coming out. I love the pick, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. I was a huge advocate of the pick, and I think just speaking on this matchup upcoming against the Steelers, he has the range to cover a Calvin Austin in the slot.
Oh yeah,
with those two-way goes, but then he can also crash down into the box, fit against the run. And then he can also probably go man-to-man with a guy like Pat Freiermuth because of his physicality. Like, he's obviously giving up size to a tight end, but he has the speed and the toughness and the physicality to play against these tight ends as well. So yes, there may be some rookie lumps with Malachi Moore, but I love the fact that he's from a high pedigree school, learned under really, a Hall of Fame level coach. And
I think
Nick
one of
Saban.
the best coaches ever to walk on the face of the planet. Like
100%.
Studying his stuff, I'm like, it's not easy to do. And any guy that plays that role is, maybe I'm being a little bit of a homer just because of my bias towards Saban and the Jets, but I think he's going to be great.
Yeah, and to your point, like with the communication and all the high IQ responsibilities that he had in Alabama, you could just kind of translate that right into the NFL, and you're not really going to miss a beat. Like I said, you'll have your rookie lumps here and there, but I feel like he's such a high IQ, cerebral player that he's going to stand out very quickly in this defense. So I'm glad that we have him. I loved everything I saw from him on tape in Alabama. The last guy I specifically wanted to talk about would, I guess, be his counterpart, right? The actual slot corner for the Jets, Michael Carter. Now, they could do big nickel and bring Malachi Moore on instead of Michael Carter. I would love to see them run dime and have Carter and Moore in the slot with Stevens and Sauce on the boundary. And people, and maybe it's only 10% of the time that they run a dime package, but I think that 10% gets your best, 6 defensive backs on the field. And we're not even talking about Azareye'h Thomas on the bench as a boundary corner. So like you really have 6 to 7 interchangeable pieces on that defensive backfield that you can really, play around with coverages and formations and alignments. So Michael Carter II, again, another communicator, high IQ player, a converted safety as well. So do you think Michael Carter has that bounce back year and could be looked at as potentially an all-pro slot corner? The Associated Press made an all-pro spot for slot corner, and I immediately thought Michael Carter could be that guy before the back injuries and everything last year. Do you think Michael Carter in this defense can get back to form and be an all-pro level type slot corner?
I think with Michael Carter, I think the only thing that might be holding him back is the amount of chess pieces we have. And that's really, because if it's a rundown, he may not be in there. They might stay in base. I mean, but again, if we can get a good first down look, they're second and long, they're probably gonna throw him right in. Like, so he won't be not on the field. I'm not trying to say that at all, right? But if we're not stopping the run, then we won't see a lot of Michael Carter. But again, everything goes according to plan. We're playing good defense. He's gonna be one of the reasons we can play as much man coverage as maybe Glenn wants. He's going to play. I didn't never talk about coverages, but he's not just going to play man. That's a misconception. But Michael Carter, again, any coverage. He's not a liability in run defense. He can get dirty. He can get down and dirty in there, and he's, like you said, very instinctual, very high IQ player. But he's going to be great as a coverage chess piece, like a converted safety, different packages when we are able to stop the run, which I think we will do at a high click this year. All the different types of coverages you can put Carter in. I don't know if you ever heard the phrase, not the phrase, but just you ever heard of non-traditional Tampa coverages, right? All that is Tampa. You're playing Tampa 2, but it's coming from a different look pre-snap, like odd look pre-snap, right? So Michael Carter at nickel, they might run him back and he play the deep half on one side because he's that versatile. It's like, what coverage do you want to run? He can come and rotate and even play the middle field safety if they want it. And I'm not saying that's what they're going to do, but he's just that in coverage. He's that type of chess piece because he can lock down anybody, just about anybody, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. So you kind of mentioned it there, coverages. If you had to, give the listeners what you would expect the coverage shells to look like, is it 0? Is it cover 1, cover 2 man, cover 3 quarters, cover 6? Like, where would you go with this AG Wilks defense? Do you think it's going to be cover 3, cover 4? Where would you say the predominant coverages are going to come from?
I mean, honestly, it's going to be all of it. He doesn't want to give guys a look and be like, hey, this is what we're going to do. Obviously, man coverage is going to be that way sometimes, right? But that's going to be in like predominantly passing situations is where he's really going to go to man coverage because it's harder to stop the run in man coverage. right? So, but again, he's going to be very versatile in his play calling, very versatile in his coverage. So many times I saw quarters cover 6. I saw a lot of 2-eye shells rolling down to 1 high, different, not even just man coverage, man match coverages, meaning like, they're passing off routes. They got different guys playing a robber or a rat from a linebacker from safety, and they're passing off crossers and it's not just, oh, we're going to play cover 1. It's like, okay, you're used to our cover 1. We're going to run cover 3, but we're not just going to run cover 3. We're going to run 3 buzz where they're dropping a safety in a hook zone, or we're going to rotate strong, and we're going to send you a fire zone, or we're going to play 3 match, which, because he's not just going to, he's going to play a lot of different things, and it's going to be fun. He's going to play quarters, like I said, quarters. He's going to do different versions of 2-man. Like he's going to do it all. I mean, I have a list of all the coverages I saw. It'd take a while to go through them about why I like them, but it was just the preseason. I charted some of the games last year, but in the preseason, I was like, are we still watching preseason football? This is like regular season calls. And so I can't wait to see what else he has if that's what we're seeing in the regular season. The preseason.
Yeah. Versatility leads to unpredictability. And I'll use Aaron Rodgers' quote from the other day when he spoke to the media. He said there's about 30 to 40% of unscouted looks in week 1 because a lot of people are hiding your coverages or your concepts in the preseason. So for you to say that you already saw a lot of the versatility on the defense makes me intrigued. Like, what is that 30 to 40% that we haven't tapped into yet as a defense? So I think that comparatively, and I hate, always harping back on the Saleh, comparisons, but it's going to be a much more fun defense to watch, right? And I feel like they're going to be aggressive and take their shots, which, yes, it can lead to, blunders on the back end or points being let up. But in terms of your expectations for the defense, like takeaways and sacks, things of that nature, are you more encouraged with the AG defense as opposed to the Saleh defense?
I'm insanely encouraged, and maybe that's just my bias. I am known to be a bit of a homer when it comes to the Jets, but
we all can be. It's okay.
Yeah, AG is everything I wanted in a defensive guy. Like his versatility. I love versatility. As much as Saleh's defense worked, and I do credit it that it does work, and I am a guy that a lot of things you can win football games a lot of ways, right? I love where AG comes from, the versatility, his knowledge, his ability to put guys in positions to succeed. In terms of takeaways, like aggressiveness, it's hard to control all the factors that contribute to takeaways, but something you can do is put yourself in situations where they're going to have to pass the ball, which is what they're going to do by more emphasis on stopping the run, right? Putting more pressure on the quarterback, creating different looks to create quarterbacks doing misreads, and they're thinking pressure's coming. Maybe it's not even coming, and they just throw something they think is going to be hot, and it's right there as a defender in the lap, creating uncertainty, creating pressure, forcing more passing situations. Saleh was always like, just wait till we're up 2 scores. Aaron Glenn's not going to wait till we're up 2 scores. He's going to put you in first, second and long, third and longs, when that was not really Saleh's game. Saleh's picks and turnovers were going to come when we were up, which we were almost never up. So, so Glenn's going to really force the issue, be like, hey, we're going to make you make mistakes. We're going to make you work for it more than Saleh's defense did. I think, and again, it worked. Credit to it, it works, and that's why people in the NFL run it. That's why Saleh runs it. But Aaron Glenn's like, no, we're not going to play passive defense. We're going to make you play football and make you play good football. Something I think Kirby Smart used to say. I heard him say, he's like, and this is kind of what take this in the NFL. But Kirby Smart used to say, we're going to make them earn their scholarship. That's how we play. That's you're going to make. You better be
earn
worth
your paycheck.
Contract.
Yep.
Yeah, you're exactly when you play the Jets, and it could go all bad. Like, don't get me wrong, it could go all bad, right? But as someone who I think believes in AG, believes where he comes from, believes in the guys he brought in and his philosophy, I see a lot of good. And again, it could all fail. You could always say that, but I feel like it would be hard to, almost, because we're going to see a lot of good from this defense. I'm excited to see it.
100%. So I guess the last question we'll end it with, tying it into the Steelers matchup coming up on Sunday. How would you personally want to see AG and Steve Wilks attack Aaron Rodgers? Because he is very good against the blitz. So would you want to bring more A-gap pressures, more C-gap pressures off the edge, or would you just drop more into coverage? How would you want to see them approach the Aaron Rodgers-led Steelers?
So that's interesting. I know everyone talks about Rodgers, and again, he's good. He's a good quarterback. Let's not get it messed up. He's a good quarterback, but it's probably going to be Arthur Smith's offense. Just from what we saw last year, I don't think his opinion is going to hold the weight it did with the Jets as it would with the Steelers. And I think Arthur Smith's going to run his game, which is run the ball, right? We're not going to see a lot of quick game. We're going to do play actions off of that, right? And what I want to see from Aaron Glenn's defense is multiple looks to stop the run. Force Aaron Rodgers into tough situations, 3rd and long, because that's tough for anybody. 3rd and long stuff, it doesn't matter who you are. You can be Patrick Mahomes, which, again, one of the greatest quarterbacks of this era, but 3rd and long is mathematically less likely to get a first down. And I want to force more of those. I want to shut down that Arthur Smith run game first. And I want to show them we mean business. And then when they run play action, let's see if Broderick Jones likes Will McDonald, and let's run some pressures. And that again, like they said, I think Wilks said this week, there's nothing we can throw at him that he hasn't seen. So it's just keeping guys in positions where they're going to excel. And it's about, making sure we're making Aaron Rodgers earn that Hall of Fame tag, making him read stuff late. We're not going to show what we're doing pre-snap. We're going to show different looks. We're going to get into different disguises. We're going to blitz our corner, and then you think he's coming again, but he's not, and then we're going to make him work. And that's that's all I really want to see. It's hard to really say. I don't really like the win-loss game, and there's so many factors that go into it, but let's make them work. That's what I want to see. I want to see that Pittsburgh offense working. Like, they're going to have to be sweating bullets, and they're going to have to earn every yard, which is what I think we're going to see.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, like you said, disguising your looks against Rodgers is going to be key. Like, there were so many moments, even with the Jets, where he's pointing out a guy who's creeping down to the box. He's like, "You're not even coming." He's like, why are you so close to the line of scrimmage? Like, you're not blitzing. So he is definitely, and he knows our personnel, right? So he definitely is going to see who is close to the line of scrimmage. He's going to see our alignments and know more often than not where he can attack with the ball. So you have to be disguising your coverage. And I would love to see nothing more than that Van Ginkel play against the Jets and the Vikings, where they had the double mug look and they drop it all out, and Rodgers thought he had the slant on the backside, and Van Ginkel steps right in the way. So that's exactly how I would plan to approach Aaron Rodgers as well. The mobility doesn't seem like it's fully there. The chemistry is not going to be there with the receivers week one. So like you have a lot of advantages in your corner that you can really tap into. So I hope that they can exploit that and really get Rodgers off his mark and really thinking a lot pre-snap, because truthfully, the more you're thinking, the less you're playing. So if you can disguise your looks and get a guy like Rodgers to be confused about what you're doing defensively, it's going to go a long way. So with that, we'll wrap it up. Drew, thank you so much. We're talking with All-22 Drew Wasowicz. If you want to drop your socials, you can plug that now. If you want people to follow you on Twitter, and where can they find you?
My name is just Drew Wasowicz on Twitter, Drew_Wasowicz. You probably see me commenting on some Dylan stuff. I like being active in the community. That's why I reached out to him. I'm like, hey, I'm a football nerd, and I got nowhere to vent. So I was like, maybe someone will listen to me about the Jets, and he did, and that's I'm thankful he brought me on. I have another Twitter called All-22 Drew. I might start posting on there more stuff about clips. I like breaking them down, but I just like talking just football. If you have any questions, or maybe I got it wrong, I'm a football nerd. I don't know everything. So if you want to nerd out with me, there's a lot more stuff I can nerd out about. So if you have any questions, or you feel like I got something I don't know that you could teach me, I'd love to learn. So don't feel free to reach out to me. Feel free to interact with me. I love answering people's questions and talking with people.
Absolutely. So he is All-22 Drew, at Coach Drew Waz on Twitter. You can follow me at DTereman on Twitter. We will certainly have Drew back. I'm sure that the audience is going to love all your insights once I post this. So thank you so much, Drew. And we will definitely talk ball soon.
Yes, sir.
All right. Until next time, guys, JETS, Jets. Let's go beat Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers. Take care, guys.